Hey, welcome football fans. It's finally that time. This is our big Super Bowl show. I've got my properly inflated football here. So I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. The name of the show is NFL Football Talk, which is an inside sports production. I don't do the show alone here, and I'm really excited to get started this week. So let me go ahead and without any further ado, introduce the main man, my fantastic analyst, none other than Mr. Chris Lardieri, who's got some big news of his own this week. Chris, what's happening?
Charles, always great to be here. The final show of the while we have actual football, I should say.
Right.
It's a bittersweet moment. While I'm always happy to do the show, we really won't have any games to talk about until September. But thank you for a great season of introductions, this one included. And yes, I actually have something to shamelessly promote, as if I were a regular guest on ESPN. Would you like to tee this one up for me, and I'll comment on it?
You know what? Why don't you go ahead and share that with us? But the only thing is, if you have a clothing line, you cannot wear your hat on the air here because otherwise I would have to fine you for that.
It's ironic you mentioned that, Charles, because I had a baseball hat on, an officially licensed Major League Baseball hat. I won't name the company or the team logo that's on it. I know Alex Smith used to get in trouble for that when he was with the 49ers. I took it off. We're in compliance with NFL rules. However, in my day job, I am not a football commentator, as you may or may not know. I work in the investment management world, and luckily I now work at a firm where every year one of our research analysts writes a paper where I won't get too technical on you for all you Wall Streeters out there. We are a quant firm, so that means we run numbers to analyze stocks and whether we should buy them. Well, we use a similar model to look at every NFL team to see how they performed relative to the point spread in every game, and we calculate what's known in the investment world as an alpha. To simplify it, it's almost an excess return of sorts, and then we rank the teams accordingly. And throughout the playoffs, what we try and do is pick the team with the lower alpha, because what we're saying is the higher alpha teams are more overvalued. Bettors like them. They've covered a lot. The public money's going to flow that way. So in this case, our research paper, which is called NFL Alphas, it's available on our website, aninvestor.com. And here to, drum roll please, give you our prediction. We are picking our quantitative model, and our analysts at Analytic are saying the Seattle Seahawks will not only cover the spread, they will win the game this year. So a little bit of interesting information there. I will say our statistics on the Patriots do not take into account deflation or pounds per square inch. However, we still feel there's strong conviction towards the Seahawks. Keeping it short and simple, the Patriots really if you were to bet $100 on them each week, had a fairly nice return on investments. What we're saying is the popular money will likely flow that way, and we saw that happen last week. The Seahawks opened 2.5-point favorites. It suddenly got bet down to Patriots 1.5-point favorites, and not adjusted to Patriots -1. So kind of hoping with that trend bodes well for the Seahawks. And I know a lot of people out there don't know who to root for, especially with the DeflateGate and all. We're hoping the Seahawks win from a firm perspective. So thank you. I appreciate the promotion, and you can either label me a genius or an idiot, actually.
All righty. We'll send everybody to the website there. They can check it out for themselves. But that whole DeflateGate thing, which actually dragged on this whole week, or actually 2 weeks, they're still talking about it. Now one thing is, we can get into whether or not they did it, or whether or not the Patriots are guilty of semi-cheating, at least yet again, but why didn't the NFL just come out, release a statement saying, we're aware of what's going on, we will be taking care of this after the Super Bowl, and then just put it all to rest right there? Why not just Charles, do that?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I've gone back and forth. I think there are couple of themes that we've absolutely hammered home this year, that have come to fruition and make us look like geniuses. Number one, we know Roger Goodell is incompetent. We know he's in the back pocket of the owners, particularly Bob Kraft, as Richard Sherman so eloquently pointed out this week. The fact that he's at his house and no investigation is being pursued for the time being says a lot. Number two, even the procedures you look at with the referees and the balls. Once the balls are examined, I mean, in Major League Baseball, the umpires hold on to the game balls.
Right.
It's not the, let's say the Dodgers or Angels bat boy is holding on to those balls and scuffing them up when no one notices. Gross incompetence there. Third, let's face it, the NFL is all about TV ratings and whether they want to admit it or not, gambling/fantasy football. If you suspend Bill Belichick or Tom Brady or launch an investigation, there will be utter chaos. I mean, in some respect, it would affect the gambling line substantially. And who's to say people might not watch the game? So this controversy, whether legitimate or not, everyone's entitled to their opinion. This is good for business. Plain and simple. And I think it's a perfect storm of what started this year with the Ray Rice saga and now ends with this. And I hate to say it, I think Roger Goodell will keep his job because he's, as Paul Tagliabue says, is all about money, and the owners like that. But you know what? This is another nail in his coffin, you would think. Yeah. And at the very least, something's got to change. I don't know if they'll force him out, but I really think the momentum is there now because, let's face it, he's had one heck of a year.
Well, the problem is with Goodell's coffin is that the coffin is so full of money that could you even nail it shut at this point? Or would there just be loose bills sticking out the sides of it? That's
the thing. I know they're really getting, and Mark Cuban kind of hit on this last year, almost greedy and slovenly. Right. But at the same time, there are some owners who are forward-thinking. You look at the legacy-type owners like the Rooneys and the Maras. You have to wonder, it's a family business. They're not just in it for the money. They've inherited it from generation to generation. Right. Longer term, is this good for business? I don't know. Think about it. If it weren't Wellington Mara saying, yeah, well, I'm in the number one media market, but look at the revenue, the NFL will probably have the same issues baseball's having right now. So what I'm wondering is maybe if some more of these reasonable owners, not the traditional new guard owners, the Krafts and the Bichattis of the world who seem to be in Goodell's back pocket, maybe they'll help stem the tide. You look at the Hunt family in Kansas City. I don't know, all speculation at this point, but if you were to look at any other business, let's say Apple were having these issues, I mean, they'd probably change the CEO and or drastically turn things around and bring in some better management under the big boss.
When you get into the whole thing of promotions, it's amazing just how tight they are, and the whole thing with Marshawn Lynch, we can just kill two birds with one stone there. Him being forced to talk to the media when he doesn't want to, and now the possibility he could get fined for wearing his own brand, that beast mode hat that he has. That's his own line, and he's not authorized to wear that in front of the camera. But when you look at it, I could understand if the NFL is a Nike thing and you wear Adidas or something like that, but something where the player is actually branding himself, I think that would fall under a different guideline, or should. And plus, the hat was made by New Era, which is actually licensed by the NFL, but it doesn't have a logo on it, the NFL license. So why don't you shed some light on this for me here, Mr. Lardieri? I'm just confused.
I am too, and you make a great point about it being New Era. I saw the picture of it and thought, wow, that's a pretty cool hat. Yeah. Never in my wildest dreams did I think he's going to get a huge fine for wearing this. Like, he's not like it's not like he's wearing, like you said, Nike versus Adidas, right, or he's out there wearing a like Jim McMahon did when he wore the Adidas headband, for instance. It's not like he wore a hat that said F Goodell. I don't
maybe
get
he should.
Yeah, he probably. When you think about it, he probably could have just done the McMahon and gotten the black Sharpie. But anyway, I think it's brilliant marketing on his part, because apparently sales were through the roof for this hat. So even if he does get the fine, it's very funny, and it's almost tongue-in-cheek witty, whether it was deliberately or not. I think it's fascinating, and it's exposing the hypocrisy of the NFL. And I don't get it. You know what? I'm not too fond of Marshawn Lynch and his act of not talking. I don't know if he has social anxiety like Ricky Williams, whatever, but I do like that he did that. I thought that was really funny, and it just really exposed the utter hypocrisy of the NFL, who makes like they're this high and mighty organization saving the world from beast mode hats, when really they're just as bad just as much about the dollar as Marshawn Lynch is with his own product. And let's think about it. After the game, what are they going to do? Are they going to regulate if guys come out and put on their own hats or T-shirts and not the Super Bowl champions hat? I mean, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I understand businesses have to make money, and it's good the NFL has grown as it has within the last 20, 30 years. But we got to remember, it gets down to the point where it's just, I mean, they're being greedy almost without a purpose here. Because remember, under the radar, they did sign that new deal with DirecTV, which is going to give them an additional $400 million every year just for that and not doing anything different. But a player tries to take a little bit of advantage of anything, and remember, even for the media session is held there in Phoenix downtown, and they're charging fans $28 a piece to get in there to watch it. So it's every single chance they get to grab a nickel here and there, they do it. But Marshawn Lynch comes out with a hat on, and now mind you, they haven't fined him yet, but he is subject to fine. So it's really up to the NFL if they want to do it or not.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the hypocrisy just goes on and on and on. Look at the NFL scouting combine. Now they charge people to go watch college kids run the 40-yard dash and jump and get timed and so forth. And then you look at, for instance, how about all these stadiums that have naming rights on them now? They're okay with that. So if I go into AT&T Stadium down in Arlington and I use a Verizon cell phone and as a football player on the sidelines, am I going to get fined too? I don't get it. But I agree with you, and I agree with Paul Tagliabue, and I know Goodell was his buddy once upon a time and his hand-picked successor, but I think it's fantastic that he said what he said. He's only concerned with money, and I don't think that Tagliabue was, and I don't think that Pete Rozelle was. And this guy is just, like you said, he's chasing the almighty dollar. I mean, it's just ridiculous to a fault. And for me, the hypocrisy and the stupidity all started when they stopped letting people say, we're having a Super Bowl party, or we're having a Super Bowl this, and now you've got to call everything big game. It's just an utter joke.
Big game, NFL championship, all that stuff. I just, and it's almost to the point where, they talk about, do the players give anything back? Players that give back to the community. It's almost time, when you look at the NFL and how it's grown, isn't it about time the NFL just gave something back to the fans? Seriously. I mean, they're just keeping, and the more fans watch, the more the ratings go up, and they just soak that into more and more advertising dollars like they're going to get. Now they're aligning with all these little NFL draft day and these fantasy football things, so that's going to wind up bringing in more money. They just get more and more and more and more, and the fans, what do they get? Overpriced merchandise. You want to watch the media session? Okay, $28 a head to go in. I think they got about 7,000 or 8,000 people in there to watch the media session. So there's another, all those dollars they just scrape off the top. And it almost gets to be borderline disgusting, not to mention the price of Super Bowl tickets even.
Oh, that's another great topic for another show. Maybe we should do that next week. I'll pull up my Super Bowl ticket from 2001 in Tampa, and you'd be amazed at what the face value of that ticket was. And that's why you go to, I was at that Super Bowl, and basically there were 2 end zones worth of fans, Baltimore in one, Giants in the other. The rest were all corporate people. Yep. And there's no atmosphere at the Super Bowl. And I got news for you. With the way this league is heading with new stadiums and luxury boxes, etc., and this is someone who grew up going to Giants games in the Meadowlands, and my brother and my dad still have season tickets. There is no atmosphere anymore. They're gouging the casual fans. It's becoming a corporate crowd, and they want it to be a TV game, but yet gouge the fans. How is that a good business model? I don't get it. And you know what? People are going to get tired of it. They're super popular now, but you know what? At some point, people are just like, why do I bother? And you're seeing it in baseball. I mean, there's a bunch of ridiculous contracts, and some teams do get good attendance, but look at the TV ratings for baseball. A whole generation of young kids is abandoning it because it's just slow, and it's not as exciting, and it's a lot of money to go to a game. I know they have 81 home games each team, but relatively speaking, it's not as cheap as it used to be. And the NFL's getting to the point where if you want to go to a game with your son or daughter, you're looking at spending at least $500 to $1,000 on the whole experience. I'd rather go on vacation.
Yep. And I think what the NFL has done, though, they've figured out what they do is they sell people on the idea of the stadium experience, but they know that their real money is made by people sitting at home and watching. That's the thing. It's not the people going to the arena and buying peanuts and cotton candy and beer, even though, you'd think an $18 beer brings in a lot of money, but it's not in the grand scheme of things.
You're absolutely right. And then there's more hypocrisy in that, where they keep pumping $18 beers out and wonder why people drive home drunk. But I think that'll be for our follow-up show in 2 weeks from now. But
yeah.
I completely agree. And you know what? I hate to sound like the grumpy old man, but if you don't like it, don't watch. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. Let's face it, the NFL has and always will be great reality television. It's a nice diversion. It's on a Sunday. It doesn't require a lot of work. 16 Sundays for 3+ hours, and then the playoffs, and you're done. It's not like baseball or basketball or hockey, which are another grind. But that said, I think this is going to be an interesting off season. Will Goodell kind of relinquish some power? Will the torches come out and someone try to take his job? I don't know, but I'm not happy with the direction of the league, and I don't begrudge someone for making money, but he got paid $44 million last year, and I'd venture to say he didn't earn all of that.
That's the thing. Only the NFL can benefit from the increased popularity. God forbid Marshawn Lynch sell 10,000 hats. But we're going to be doing some shows, and I was thinking about it. This is, even though we're going to get down into the Super Bowl here in just a moment, but this off season, I think there's going to be a few things to cover. Not just DeflateGate, but also, remember, there's a whole Ray Rice thing. And then we're coming up on the April 15th, Adrian Peterson. There's Peterson Gate and Ray Rice Gate that we got to keep a watch on, too. So we might have to do a show like every month just to keep everybody in the mix and see what's happening.
And I'm all for it, especially in March when you get the salary cap casualties. Will Peyton Manning be one, for instance?
Yeah.
RG3, and then free agency. I'm all for it. And look, I bash Goodell plenty this season. I will give him credit for one thing. He's basically made this an 11-month news cycle of a league. June into July gets kind of quiet, which I'm fine with. That's vacation time. The kids get out of school. But there is something to talk about every month in the NFL. And some months, you look at like the draft and the scouting combine is outdrawing other major sports and TV ratings. Yep. So I'll give him credit for that. And in that respect, he's a good marketer.
And then there's Manziel to watch, too, where he did not exactly get a vote of confidence from the owner there. So that's another thing to watch, is what the Cleveland Browns are going to do. I'm normally not really interested in what the Cleveland Browns are going to do in the offseason. All due respect to the Browns fans out there, but I'm sure they sympathize with me. But that'll be an interesting situation to see how that develops as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of potential train wrecks to keep your eye on. And let's not forget, Rex Ryan and his tough talk in Buffalo, he still doesn't have a quarterback. He's going to go searching for one. That's another little side story to watch out for.
All right, there we go. So break down Super Bowl 49 here. And, of course, the different roads taken. You have the Patriots, who just ran roughshod over the Indianapolis Colts. Then on the other side, just a thriller of a game with the Seattle Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers. And, the Packers, everyone wants to blame. Look at the Packer fans. Look at social media. They all blame the guy who made the last mistake for the Packers. Well, seemingly the last mistake, which was not fielding the onside kick. But when you look at it, there were about 6, 7, 8 different plays leading up to that. And then in the overtime, they don't fault anyone for giving up 2 successive 35-yard passes, which led to the game-winning touchdown, right? It was all about the guy who botched the onside kick.
Always convenient to find a scapegoat. And if you ask me, I feel bad for the poor guy, but there's plenty of blame to go around. Mike McCarthy's atrocious play calling. I mean, I was screaming at my TV. The fact that the interception, which should have sealed the game, and Julius Peppers is telling him to take a knee when he's got 30 yards of space to run, to get into better field position, to potentially kick a field goal and kill the clock, and he doesn't. The 2-point conversion, which looked like something straight out of Pop Warner. Our friend didn't knock down the 2-point conversion. He just jumped. I've never seen anything like it. There's just plenty of blame to go around. And, ultimately, the reason why we didn't think the Packers would win that game is what ultimately happened. Their defense failed. They held for 55 minutes. I give them credit. They played a great game. They had a great scheme. They picked off Russell Wilson a ton of times. But that defense was their Achilles heel all season, and it just failed at the most inopportune time.
Yep. Yeah, they couldn't put him away. And here's what I like about Wilson, who By the way, I mean, Wilson I think he makes about $900,000 a year. I mean, is that not the best? Seattle might be on the verge of, in this era of football, winning 2 Super Bowls back-to-back with a quarterback that makes less than $1 million a year. How about that? I bet that will never be duplicated, never.
Highly unlikely, and you know what? Even Billy Beane of the Oakland A's is jealous of that value.
Yep. But I got to credit Wilson, and this is what I like about championship players. And they say great players are not always great, but they're great when they need to be. Now, I don't want to immortalize Russell Wilson or put him in the Hall of Fame yet, but you look at that half that he had. The first half, he threw 3 interceptions. You know, they're down 16-0 at the half, but still, he kept on going, kept on fighting, and even when they're down 19-7, going down to the end of the game, and he still kept on and kept on playing. And hey, Marshawn Lynch, all those guys, and that's what it's about, because all these sporting events, what you have are a bunch of guys doing what they do. You have a lot of screw-ups, and then at the end of the game, you may still be within striking distance, and it's what you do in those situations that really determines, if you're great or you're just pretty darn good. All due respect to Aaron Rodgers, who I love Aaron Rodgers, by the way.
Yeah, completely agree. And to his credit, you can point the finger at him if you want, but the guy was practically limping out there on the field. But anyway, not only that, look at Richard Sherman playing with one arm, and another screw-up by the Packers. Why are they not challenging him? Earl Thomas playing hurt. I mean, those guys wanted to win. They wanted it more, and I think that's a great example. That we talk about what's wrong with sports. The Seahawks beating the Packers showed a lot of what's about right with sports and persevering and never giving up.
Yep, so, getting right down to it, though, big game, which is still, I think, is New England a 1-point favorite now? It was a pick'em for a while, and then the line slid a little bit there, but to me it's still a pick'em. And, this brings up something very interesting, though. When we look at, they talk about the devalued running back in today's NFL, but look at these two teams. Both of them have a strong running game. You got Marshawn Lynch on one side, and then you got LeGarrette Blount on the other. The Patriots are clearly a different team with Blount in the backfield than they were before he got there. So do we enter an era of football where you just kind of, you wind up picking up, do running backs just become kind of a mercenary workforce in the NFL? Because you don't want to commit long-term to a running back. You can't get a running back's not going to get a contract over 3 or 4 years. So do you just pick up a running back in mid-season and then... Because not having a running game is fine for the regular season, as we saw with the Indianapolis Colts. But it will come back to bite you. And what happens to get to the Super Bowl, you got to have a strong run game.
Completely agree. And both the Seahawks and the Cowboys are going to cross this bridge in the offseason with their respective running backs. But I agree with you. I mean, you want to talk about conspiracies? How about LeGarrette Blount quitting on the Steelers and ending up in New England a few days later? Huh? No one talks about that. But you know what? Good for him. I guess maybe he's a bad example of it paying, because now he's starting in the Super Bowl and running over people like he did a few years ago. So I agree. You have to have a running back. You can't just not just have a one-dimensional passing game. You've got to keep the defenses at bay. And even the Packers were doing it for a while with Eddie Lacy. He looked like a young beast mode running through that game. So I think that's a good story. The death of the running back is greatly exaggerated. However, from a salary cap perspective, you cannot lock up a lot of money in one guy, as fragile as they are. So does that mean you draft guys, maybe sign a second-tier free agent, go with a committee in the hot hand? Maybe that's the wave of the future. But to say, you don't need a running back anymore, you can't, because the Patriots are here, unlike last year, because LeGarrette Blount is running like a madman.
Let's go ahead and get right down to it. We've got this big game. We got Seattle, best defense in yards allowed, points allowed, and we know the story about them. We also know about the Patriots. Scoring can beat you in a bunch of different ways. They used the run game against Indianapolis, ran completely over them. The week before against Baltimore, they only had 14 total rushing yards. And then against the Colts, I think, I believe LeGarrette Blount ran for about 158 yards. But clearly, they got the ways to beat you. Then you got Seattle with the stout defense. Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas a little bit banged up, but you know they're going to bring it. I'll let you go ahead and pick this one first, man.
Oh, Charles, this is a tough one. You know, when the conference championships were over, I think we commented back and forth to each other about how most of the country will not know who to root for in the Super Bowl, and that's a rarity. With DeflateGate, I'm kind of feeling the prevailing wisdom as well. The Seahawks are the lesser of two evils, and I know my firm in their research paper picked the Seahawks. Full disclosure, I'm rooting for them. I've never liked the Patriots. Part of me would think if Patriots did win, I wouldn't cry too much, because then I could say, well, the Patriots can't beat any team named the New York Giants in the Belichick era. But besides that, this game reminds me of last year. Everyone wanted the Broncos to win, and everyone seemed to forget about the Seahawks, and I think the reverse is true. I think the Patriots, despite all their controversy, have really gotten the offense in gear this year. I think their defense is the most underrated story of this Super Bowl that not a lot of people are talking about. Darrelle Revis, once the most talkative and best cornerback in the NFL, has been fairly quiet. Got Brandon Browner on the other side, former Seahawk, who is an excellent cornerback as well. And I think they shut down the Seattle receivers, who aren't the greatest, but let's face it, they did what they had to beat the Packers. On the flip side, I really like the Seahawks defense. Like I said, I admire Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman for what they did. But you know what? This is a regular season game. I highly doubt either of those guys are playing, or they probably end up as game-time decisions on the injury report. And I think Brady and Belichick are going to find a way to exploit them. I also think that LeGarrette Blount is the best running back the Seahawks have played in weeks. I don't know how they're going to defend him, given that if McCarthy had kind of changed up the game plan a little and let Eddie Lacy run a little more when he shouldn't have been throwing, etc. I think they could have kind of eaten up some more clock and pounded the ball in the red zone, and I think Blunt will have the ability to do that. And as much as it pains me to say, I'm going to pick the Patriots to win this Super Bowl. I'm going to root for the Seahawks. I'm going to hope that my prediction is incorrect. I will not put any money on this game, but that said, I've just, from day one, even before the Deflategate, just had an odd feeling that this is the Patriots' year and the evil empire will prevail.
Well, this is a hard one to pick, I got to say. And I think one thing, though, is going to be a great game, because we got to remember, and when you look at the defensive backfields, and you talk about it, Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner. And Browner, who, by the way, missed last year's Super Bowl because of suspension. So this is going to be his first Super Bowl. Brandon Browner and Darrelle Revis on one side. You got Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, and those boys on the other side. So it's great. And then up front, though, the Seahawks defensive front is a little bit light. It'd be great if Brandon Mebane was still there, but hey, if I had some ham, I'd make some ham and eggs. If I had some eggs, so whatever. But I like Marshawn Lynch, though, and the way that he goes into beast mode when he needs to, and that is late in the games. The second half, midway through the third quarter, you can see him getting it cranked up. And then fourth quarter, he gets stronger and stronger. Somehow, I don't know, gets beat up all game and then somehow just flips a switch, eats some Skittles, and goes down the field. I think this is going to be a classic. A classic all the way down to the wire. But I'm going Seahawks. Seahawks, beast mode, back-to-back Super Bowl championships, and then a tumultuous off-season as they try to get both Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch under contract.
Charles, we disagreed throughout the season, but I pick with my head, I root from my heart, and I wouldn't be sad if you beat me this week. I like your logic. I'm just going off intuition and the fact that,
we didn't even talk about Gronkowski either, so that's another thing. There's plenty of reasons to pick the Patriots. And what it comes down to in this game is you got to, look at things, micromanage as and just find something that you think one team can exploit better than the other. And it's, I'm going with the power of beast mode over the power of Gronk is what it comes down to.
And you bring up an interesting point. Gronk was not healthy that last Super Bowl against the Giants. And the other thing that I forgot to mention, there is no Wes Welker to drop a ball on this Patriots team. I do not see Julian Edelman doing the same thing on a key third down. Those are my two keys to victory.
All right, well, we'll see, And by the way, I know you got other commitments there, but if you happen to be in my neighborhood, we'll have plenty of food at my Super Bowl party, so feel free to stop on by with the wife and the kids and whoever else might be in the car.
I appreciate it. You know, Charles, here in Southern California, it's been a rampant flu season. It went through my house with a hurricane fiercity that I haven't seen in years. So someone might come down with the flu, and you may see Lardieri's on your doorstep, so be careful what you wish for.
All right, I'll have some extra pulled pork and mac and cheese ready just in case, man.
All right. I think I may have to change my plans, and I'll see you Sunday.
And maybe a little sweet tea with a splash of Johnny Walker Green in it. That's always a crowd pleaser, too.
I'll alcohol you later.
Okay, everybody. So, you know what? Thanks for watching. We'll see you after the Super Bowl. We'll have to do a wrap-up. I'm sure this game will be worthy of a Super Bowl wrap-up, unlike last year's Super Bowl. But, Mr. Lardieri, I always give you some time here. Final thoughts for all the folks out there?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, Analytic Investors, aninvestor.com, 2014-15 NFL Alphas is the paper, link on our website. Thank you for reading, just kind of a contrarian look at the NFL and the Super Bowl. Final thoughts on the Super Bowl itself. I beat up on Troy Aikman a lot, not just because he's a Dallas Cowboy, but because Joe Buck makes him sound worse than he really is. But I got to give him credit for taking a shot at Tom Brady. And, I also thought it was ironic, as I say, is because the watching that Brady press conference, I realized Tom Brady may be the only man involved in the NFL who says more than Troy Aikman. I mean, that guy really, in my opinion, showed that he's much more of a mental midget than people give him credit for. I know everyone loves to compare him to Joe Montana and so forth, but if I'm going on NFL Jeopardy, I'll take Russell Wilson over Tom Brady any day. That guy really I don't know if he wasn't prepared or, with balls and Spygate tapes, Belichick's done a great job of making some sort of Frankensteinish quarterback out of him, but boy, did he throw a dud in that press conference. So, even though I picked the Patriots, I got to take my shot at Brady right there.
There you go. Hey, nothing like a well-timed pseudo-cheap shot. We'll call that a pseudo-cheap shot. Not completely.
I'll take it.
Okay, everybody, remember, follow Chris on Twitter at ChrisLSports. Follow yours truly on Twitter at The Inside Sports. And remember, we'll be obviously tweeting out during the Super Bowl little words of wisdom. Remember to check out Mr. Lardieri online as well. So everybody, thanks for watching. Remember, this is NFL football talk every single week. This is an Inside Sports production, and thank you for joining us.